The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. It was unlike anything humans had ever built, a structure of gleaming metal that seemed to shift colors as it moved through space. Radio signals from all over the world tried to make contact, but for 3 days the ship remained silent. On the 4th day, it finally responded. Jack Nelson stood nervously in the United Nations emergency chamber. As the commander of the North American Space Defense Force, he had been chosen to represent Earth's military interests. Around him were scientists, political leaders, and language experts, all waiting for humanity's first official meeting with alien life. President Olivia Martinez stepped forward. "Commander Nelson, are you ready?" Jack nodded, though he didn't feel ready at all. None of them were. How could anyone prepare for a moment like this? The large screen at the front of the chamber flickered to life. A tall figure appeared with blue skin that seemed almost translucent. Its eyes were large and completely black, set in a face that was almost human-like, yet clearly alien. "I am Zendrax," the being said in perfect English. "I speak on behalf of the Galactic Council, the governing body of the 7 sentient species that maintain order in this sector of the galaxy." The room fell completely silent. After centuries of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they now had their answer. "We have observed your species for some time," Zendrax continued. "We watched as you developed nuclear weapons. We watched as you nearly destroyed your planet through climate change, then managed to save it. And now we have watched as you developed faster-than-light travel." Jack felt a chill run through him. Earth's first successful FTL test had only happened 6 months ago, under the direction of Dr. Frank Howard. It had been kept top secret, or so they thought. "Your achievement of FTL technology has triggered automatic protocols," Zendrax said. "When a new species reaches this level of development, they must be evaluated for inclusion in the Galactic Council." President Martinez stepped forward. "We welcome this evaluation. Humanity is ready to join a larger community." For the first time, Zendrax's expression changed slightly. "Was that pity?" "Or disgust? You misunderstand," the alien said. "The evaluation has already been completed. The Galactic Council has reached its decision." A murmur of confusion spread through the room. "Your species has been deemed too unpredictable, too violent, and too resourceful to join galactic society at this time. The combination of these traits makes humans a destabilizing threat to galactic peace." Jack felt anger rising in his chest. "You're judging our entire species based on what? Our history? We've made mistakes, but we've learned from them." Zendrax didn't acknowledge Jack's outburst. "By authority of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby restricted to the Sol System. Any human ship detected beyond the orbit of your dwarf planet Pluto will be considered in violation of this decree and will be destroyed without warning." The screen split to show images of massive weapon platforms appearing near the edge of the solar system. "These enforcement platforms are now active," Zendrax said. "They will remain in place until such time as humanity proves it can be trusted, or until your species naturally evolves beyond its current aggressive tendencies." "And how long might that take?" President Martinez asked, her voice steady despite the shock. "Based on our observations of similar species, between 500 and 1,000 Earth years," Zendrax replied without emotion. The room erupted in outrage. Jack couldn't believe what he was hearing. After finally reaching for the stars, humanity was being told to stay in its corner like a misbehaving child. "This is ridiculous," Frank Howard said, stepping forward. The physicist was in his 50s, with wild gray hair and intense eyes. "You can't just lock us in our own solar system. There's an entire galaxy out there." "The decision is final," Zendrax sighed. "We will return in 100 years to reassess. Until then, this discussion is over." The screen went dark. Minutes later, sensors showed the alien ship moving away from Earth, accelerating to impossible speeds before disappearing completely. For 3 days, the world's leaders debated how to respond. Some wanted to ignore the ban and continue space exploration. Others feared the consequences of defying beings with such advanced technology. In the end, caution prevailed. All planned missions beyond the solar system were officially canceled. 6 months later, Jack found himself in a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. President Martinez had called a meeting of only her most trusted advisors. "We can't accept this," she said without preamble. "We can't allow an alien council to decide humanity's future." "What choice do we have?" asked General Richard Cole. "You've seen the reports. Those weapon platforms are beyond anything we can handle." Frank Howard cleared his throat. "Maybe we don't have to handle them." All eyes turned to the physicist. "I've been working on something," Frank continued. "A new type of drive that might be able to, well, slip past their detection systems." "You're talking about stealth technology?" Jack asked. Frank nodded. "Something like that. Based on what we observed of their ship, I believe their sensors work on principles similar to our own, just more advanced. If that's the case, we might be able to create a blind spot." President Martinez leaned forward. "How long would it take to develop this technology? With proper funding and resources?" 2 years, maybe 3. The president was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "You'll have everything you need. This stays completely off the books. As far as the world and the Galactic Council are concerned, we've accepted their decision." "And when we have this technology," Jack asked, "what then?" "Then we start exploring the galaxy on our terms," Martinez replied. "Not to start a war, but to learn more about this council and these other species." "Knowledge is power, Commander Nelson. If we're going to change their minds about us someday, we need to understand them first." Jack felt a spark of hope for the first time since the aliens had arrived. "I want to be part of this." "I was hoping you'd say that," the president said, "because I'm putting you in charge of the mission. When Howard's drive is ready, you'll command our first ship beyond the barrier." 3 years later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Silent Hope, a small but advanced ship hidden beneath the surface of Europa, Jupiter's icy moon. Dr. Howard had delivered on his promise. The new drive was ready, along with other technologies, developed through studying the alien ship's brief visit. "All systems are green," reported Susan Kelly, the ship's engineer. "Stealth systems are active and stable." Jack looked around at his small crew, just 5 people, all volunteers who understood. They might never return to Earth if things went wrong. "Are we ready for this?" he asked quietly. Lisa Blackwood, his second-in-command, smiled. "No, but we're doing it anyway." "That's what humans do." Jack nodded and took a deep breath. "Take us out, nice and slow? Let's see if we can slip past our alien babysitters." The Silent Hope rose silently through Europa's icy crust, using a path carefully melted and then refrozen behind them. As they cleared the moon's surface, all eyes were on the sensor displays. The alien weapon platforms orbited far away, near the edge of the solar system. Would the stealth systems work against their advanced technology? The ship accelerated gradually, heading toward the invisible line humanity had been forbidden to cross. No one spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the engines. "Approaching Pluto's orbit," Lisa announced tensely. Jack gripped the arms of his command chair. This was it. If they were detected, the alien weapons would fire without warning. They crossed the line. Nothing happened. The sensors remained clear, showing no signs of pursuit or weapons lock. "I think we did it," Frank whispered, his eyes wide. "We're past the barrier." Jack allowed himself a small smile. "Begin star mapping. Let's see what's out there." The Silent Hope continued accelerating, carrying the first humans to defy the Galactic Council's ban. They were heading in tunk-down space with no idea what they would find. But they were free, and that was enough for now. Behind them, Earth continued its official policy of compliance, while secretly preparing more ships. Humanity had been contained, but not defeated. And somewhere out in the vastness of space, the Galactic Council had no idea that their perfect cage had already been broken. 5 years had passed since the Silent Hope first slipped past the alien barrier. In that time, 4 more stealth ships had joined it in the stars beyond the solar system. Each operated independently, mapping different sectors of space and gathering information about the species that made up the Galactic Council. Captain Lisa Blackwood had taken command of the Silent Hope. 2 years ago, when Jack Nelson returned to Earth to help coordinate the growing secret fleet, Lisa's ship was now deep in what the aliens called the pristine sector, far from Earth and the watchful eyes of the Council. "We're picking up a distress signal," said Paul Garcia, the ship's communications officer. "It's coming from a small research station on the fourth moon of that gas giant." Lisa moved to his console and studied the data. "What kind of distress? Are they under attack?" "The translation is rough, but it seems they're experiencing some kind of catastrophic system failure. Life support is failing. There are 12 researchers on board, and they have less than 2 hours of air left," Lisa thought quickly. Human ships were not supposed to exist this far from Earth. If they revealed themselves to help, they risked exposing humanity's defiance of the Council ban. "How far is the nearest Council vessel that might respond?" she asked. Susan Kelly, now the ship's tactical officer, checked her screens. "Based on the traffic patterns we've observed, at least 6 hours away," Lisa nodded. "Then they won't make it in time? We're going in." The crew prepared for rescue operations as the Silent Hope approached the research station. It was a small structure clearly designed for scientific purposes rather than military use. The ship's sensors showed failing power systems and a slow leak of atmosphere. "Open a channel," Lisa ordered. "Keep it audio only." When the connection was established, she spoke clearly. "Research Station, this is Captain Lisa Blackwood. We've received your distress call and are prepared to assist. Please advise on your situation." There was a moment of silence, then a surprised voice responded. "This is lead researcher Vrilix. We don't recognize your ship classification. Are you from the Council?" "That's not important right now," Lisa replied. "We're here to help. How many people need evacuation?" 12, Vrilix answered. "But our docking systems are offline. We have no way to transfer from the station to your vessel." Lisa looked at Susan. "Options?" "We could use the emergency airlocks," Susan suggested. "It won't be comfortable, but we can bring them across in EVA suits, 2 at a time," Lisa nodded. "Begin preparations." The rescue operation took nearly an hour. The alien researchers were clearly confused by the human ship and its crew, but their questions were politely deflected as the humans focused on saving lives. The last to leave the station was Vrilix himself, a tall, thin being with pale green skin and 4 arms. As Lisa helped him remove his EVA suit aboard the Silent Hope, he studied her with large, curious eyes. "You're human," he said simply. It wasn't a question. Lisa hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. Humans are confined to their home system by Council decree. Yet here you are, thousands of light years from Earth." "Here we are," Lisa agreed, offering nothing more. Vrilix was quiet for a moment. "Our sensors detected a radiation surge before. Our systems failed. That's what damaged our life support. If you hadn't come when you did, we would all have died. We couldn't let that happen. Even though helping us risked exposing your violation of Council law?" Lisa met his gaze steadily. "Even then," Vrilix seemed to consider this, "the Council told us humans were dangerous. Too unpredictable, too violent. Is that what you've seen today?" Lisa asked before Vrilix could answer. Paul's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain, we have a problem. There's a Council patrol ship changing course to intercept the research station. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Lisa turned to Vrilix. "We need to leave. We can drop you at the nearest Council outpost." "No," Vrilix said firmly. "If you do that, they will question us about how we survived. I would be forced to report your presence." "Then what do you suggest?" "Take us to Reller. It's a trading post 3 days from here. We can make our own way from there, and if anyone asks, we can say a private transport rescued us." Lisa studied the alien researcher, trying to decide if she could trust him. "Why would you do that? Cover for us." "Because today you have shown me that perhaps the Council was wrong about humans. I am a scientist. When new evidence contradicts a theory, the theory must be reconsidered." With the decision made, the Silent Hope quickly moved away from the failing research station, its stealth systems active once more. The Council patrol ship would find an empty station and assume the researchers had already been rescued or had perished. Either way, there would be no evidence of human involvement. As the ship traveled to Reller, Lisa allowed the alien researchers limited access to the common areas. Most of the humans were nervous about the arrangement, but Lisa saw it as an opportunity. They've been told we're violent and unpredictable, she explained to her crew. Let's show them something different. Over the next 3 days, cautious conversations led to shared meals, which led to more open discussions. The aliens were scientists, curious by nature, and the humans were eager to learn more about the galaxy and its inhabitants. There are 7 major species in the Council, Vrillix explained during one such conversation. My people, the Ilarians, are among the youngest members, having joined only 3 centuries ago. And who leads the Council? Lisa asked. The Zorlians. They were the first to develop faster-than-light travel over 10,000 years ago. They brought the other species together and established the Council system. Paul leaned forward. Were they the ones who decided to ban humans from the galaxy? Vrillix hesitated. The final vote was unanimous, but yes, the Zorlians presented the assessment of your species and recommended the containment policy. Based on what? Susan asked, unable to hide her frustration. They barely interacted with us. They didn't need to, Vrillix said. The Council has studied hundreds of developing species over thousands of years. They have models to predict which ones will integrate peacefully into galactic society and which ones might cause disruption. And we failed their model, Lisa said flatly. Your adaptability combined with your history of conflict was concerning, Vrillix admitted. Most species that reach the stars have unified and eliminated warfare. Humans achieve space travel while still divided into nations, still carrying the capacity for violence. Lisa was quiet for a moment. And now? Having met us, what do you think? Vrillix looked around at the human crew. I think models can be flawed. I think there is more to learn about humans than what the Council assessment contained. When they reached Reller, the Silent Hope remained at a distance while a small transport shuttle took the alien researchers to the trading post. Before leaving, Vrillix approached Lisa one last time. Captain Blackwood, I cannot promise that news of humans operating beyond their system won't eventually reach the Council, but my team and I will not be the ones to report it. Thank you, Lisa said. That's all we can ask. Vrillix paused. There are others in the galaxy who question the wisdom of isolating Earth. Perhaps in time those voices will grow louder. As the Silent Hope moved away from Reller, Lisa recorded a detailed report about the encounter to be delivered to Earth on their next return trip. For the first time, humans had made direct, peaceful contact with members of the Galactic Council. It was a small step, but an important one. What Lisa didn't know was that similar encounters were happening elsewhere in the galaxy as other human. Stealth ships quietly explored and occasionally intervened when they found others in danger. Slowly, quietly. Humanity was building a reputation among the stars, not as the dangerous species the Council had labeled them, but as mysterious helpers who appeared when needed most and disappeared just as quickly and on a distant council. Vrillix began carefully sharing his experience with trusted colleagues, planting the first seeds of doubt about whether the ban on humanity had been justified after all. The Galactic Council's central meeting chamber was in chaos. Representatives from all 7 species spoke over each other as reports came in from the edges of council space. Admiral Kren, a stocky, gray-skinned Volturian with a reputation for calm under pressure, struggled to maintain order. One at a time, he growled, his deep voice cutting through the noise. We cannot address this crisis if we cannot hear each other. Supreme Counselor Zendrax, the same Zorlian who had delivered Earth's banishment decree 10 years earlier, raised a long-fingered hand for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. The reports from Proxima Centauri V have been confirmed. Zendrax said gravely, the mining colony is gone. Not destroyed, but empty. The buildings stand, but the people are missing. All 5,000 of them, a murmur ran through the chamber. And the crystalline growths? Asked a representative from the insect-like Krell species. Present throughout the colony, Admiral Kren confirmed. Our science teams have taken samples, but they are cautious. The crystals seem to react to biological matter. Zendrax's expression darkened. This matches the reports from 3 other worlds in the past 2 weeks. We must face the possibility that an old enemy has returned. You cannot mean, began one of the representatives, unable to finish the thought. The Vex Hive, Zendrax said, naming the fear that had grown in the chamber. We believed them extinct for millennia, but the evidence suggests otherwise. For most of the representatives, the Vex Hive was little more than a frightening story from ancient history. Only the long-lived Zorlians remembered the last time this enemy had threatened the galaxy. What exactly are we facing? Admiral Kren asked. Zendrax activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. A crystalline structure appeared, shifting and growing before their eyes. The Vex Hive is a parasitic collective intelligence, he explained. They begin as microscopic crystalline spores that can survive in space for thousands of years. When they find a suitable world, they infect living organisms and technology, consuming both and growing stronger. They do not reproduce as we understand it. They consume and expand. How were they defeated before? Asked another representative. They were not defeated, Zendrax admitted. They were contained. The old council sacrificed an entire sector, collapsing the only wormhole that connected it to the rest of the galaxy. We assumed they would eventually consume all resources in that isolated sector and die out. Then how are they here now? Unknown, but they are here and spreading rapidly. Admiral Kren stepped forward. I have already dispatched our most advanced battle groups to establish a quarantine zone around the affected systems. We will prevent this infection from spreading further. The confidence in his voice was reassuring to most in the chamber, but Zendrax knew better. He had seen the classified reports of the first military encounters with the Vex Hive. The Council forces had not fared well, far away. In Earth's secure command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Sam Wilson reviewed the intelligence gathered by humanity's now extensive network of stealth ships. Over the decades since the ban, Earth had launched 20 such vessels, creating an invisible human presence throughout the galaxy. How reliable is this information? He asked Jack Nelson, now Admiral of Earth's Secret Fleet. Very, Jack replied. 3 of our ships have observed Council military movements and intercepted communications. Something called the Vex Hive has emerged in the Proxima Centauri sector and is spreading rapidly. The Council is trying to contain it, but failing. Dr. Frank Howard, his hair now completely white but his eyes as sharp as ever, pointed to a display showing crystal-like structures. Our science team believes these are some kind of silicon-based life form, but unlike anything we've seen before. They seem to absorb both organic matter and technology, integrating them into their structure. Are they a threat to Earth? President Wilson asked the question everyone was thinking. Not immediately, Jack said. They're still several sectors away, but the Council's containment efforts are failing. Their weapons seem ineffective, and the Hive adapts quickly to any tactic used against it more than once. Could our weapons be more effective? Dr. Nancy Klein, the chief scientist aboard the Silent Hope, and now head of Earth's Xenobiology Division, spoke up. Possibly. We've been studying the limited samples our ships have managed to collect from a safe distance. The Hive has a pattern to its adaptation. It's not truly creative or innovative. It analyzes what it encounters and develops countermeasures, but always following certain rules. And this helps us how? The president asked. Human thinking doesn't follow rules, Nancy explained. We make intuitive leaps. We try absurd approaches. We're unpredictable. The very trait that made the Council fear us might be an advantage against the Hive. President Wilson considered this. You're suggesting we should help the Council fight this threat? The same Council that banned us from the galaxy? I'm suggesting we should help save the galaxy, Nancy corrected, including ourselves. If the Hive spreads far enough, it will eventually reach us too. Jack nodded in agreement. We've been operating in the shadows for a decade, proving through our actions that humanity isn't the threat the Council believed. Maybe it's time to step into the light. The president was quiet for a long moment. What's your plan? Captain Lisa Blackwood has been tracking a Council flagship, the Eternal Vigilance, commanded by Admiral Kren himself. It's headed to the front lines of this conflict. I propose we send our most advanced ships to assist when the inevitable battle begins. Without warning them first? President Wilson asked, surprised. Element of surprise, Jack said with a slight smile. Not just for the Hive, but for the Council too. Let them see what humans can do when we're fighting to protect others, not just ourselves. 3 days later, Lisa Blackwood stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's newest and most powerful stealth vessel. Gone was the cautious approach of the early exploration ships. This was a warship, built with everything humanity had learned in a decade of secret observation and reverse engineering of Council technology. All systems ready, Captain, reported Susan Kelly, now her first officer. The other ships are in position, Lisa nodded. The fleet of 5 human vessels had been shadowing the Council flagship for 2 days, watching as it coordinated increasingly desperate battles against the advancing Hive. Each encounter ended the same way with Council ships retreating or being consumed by the crystalline entities that had once been dismissed as ancient history. The Hive vessels are approaching the flagship, Paul Garcia reported from Tactical. Council ships are moving to intercept, but they're outnumbered. Lisa watched as the Council's formation began to break apart under the Hive's assault. Their weapons, so effective against conventional enemies, barely slowed the crystalline ships, and with each failed attack, the Hive seemed to grow stronger, adapting to the Council's tactics. They're going to lose, Lisa said quietly. And not just this battle. The flagship Eternal Vigilance was now surrounded, its shields failing under the relentless assault. In moments it would be overrun, and with it, the Council's best military commander and their most advanced command ship. Lisa took a deep breath and made the decision humanity had been building toward for 10 years. Disengage stealth systems, she ordered. Power up all weapons. Signal the other ships to do the same. We're going in. As the human ships shimmered into visibility on the edge of the battlefield, Lisa opened a channel to her fleet. This is Captain Blackwood. Target the Hive ships surrounding the Council flagship. Hit them with everything we've got, but be ready to change tactics the moment they start to adapt. Remember your training: be unpredictable, be human. With that, the 5 ships of Earth's secret fleet surged forward, weapons blazing, about to reveal themselves to the galaxy and the Council that had banished them. The time for hiding in the shadows was over. Now was the time to show exactly what humanity could do when the stakes were high enough. And on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Admiral Kren stared in disbelief as unknown ships appeared from nowhere to come to his rescue. Ships that, according to his sensors, originated from a world that should have no presence this far from home-Earth. The 5 human ships tore through the Vex Hive formation with surprising effectiveness. Unlike the Council ships that attacked in predictable patterns, the human vessels seemed to move randomly, changing direction and tactics without warning. On the bridge of the Defiance, Lisa Blackwood called out rapid commands. Group 2, switch to pulse disruptors. Group 3, execute maneuver Delta. Don't give them time to adapt to any single approach. The human weapons had been specifically designed based on Dr. Klein's research into the Hive's adaptation patterns. They targeted the central nodes of the crystalline structures, disrupting the collective intelligence that guided them. The flagship shields are at 12%, Paul reported from his tactical station. They won't hold much longer. Lisa nodded. Move us between the flagship and the largest concentration of Hive vessels. Deploy the nanite countermeasures on my mark. The Defiance surged forward, positioning itself as a shield for the Council flagship. As it did, it released a cloud of microscopic robots designed to infiltrate and disrupt the crystalline structure of the Hive. Nanites deployed, Susan confirmed. They're working. The Hive ships are slowing. The other human vessels pressed the advantage, focusing their fire on the now vulnerable enemy. The Hive attempted to adapt, but the humans kept changing tactics. never using the same approach long enough for the crystalline intelligence to develop an effective counter dot in less than 30 minutes. The space around the Council flagship was clear of enemy vessels. The surviving Hive ships retreated, seeming to recognize they faced something they couldn't easily adapt to. Tense silence fell over the bridge of the Defiance as Lisa opened a communication channel to the Council flagship. "This is Captain Lisa Blackwood of the Earth vessel Defiance. Your ship is secure for now, Admiral Kren." There was a long pause before a response came. "This is Admiral Kren of the Galactic Council. I thank you for your assistance. Though I must point out that your presence here violates Council law." Lisa couldn't help but smile at the formal response. "With respect, Admiral, I believe we have more pressing concerns than enforcement of a 10-year-old ban. The Vex Hive will regroup and return with adaptations to some of our tactics. We should use this time to coordinate our response." Another pause. "You seem to know a great deal about this enemy." "We've been studying them since they first appeared. We have information that might help in fighting them." "You've been monitoring Council space," Kren said. "It wasn't a question. We have. And right now, that works in your favor? Request permission to dock with your vessel to discuss strategy." The silence stretched longer this time. Lisa knew the Admiral was likely consulting with the Council leadership. Finally, his voice returned. "Permission granted, Captain Blackwood. But be aware that this temporary alliance does not negate the Council's decree regarding humanity's containment." "Understood, Admiral. We'll discuss one crisis at a time." 2 hours later, Lisa sat at a large table in the Council flagship's conference room. With her were Susan Kelly and Dr. Nancy Klein, who had transferred from another human ship specifically for this meeting. Across from them were Admiral Kren and 3 senior Council officials, including a Zorlian science officer who kept staring at the humans with undisguised curiosity. "Your tactics were unusual," Admiral Kren said, "but effective. Our weapons have barely slowed the Hive's advance." Nancy leaned forward. "The Hive adapts through analysis and pattern recognition. They identify how your weapons and tactics work, then develop countermeasures based on predictable outcomes. But they struggle with true randomness and creative problem-solving. Traits that humans excel at," said the Zorlian scientist mentor. "Xylax. Now I understand why Zendrax was so concerned about your species joining the galactic community." Lisa met his gaze steadily. "The same traits that made you fear us are exactly what's needed against this enemy. The Vex Hive is a perfect counter to the Council's ordered, predictable approach to warfare. But they've never encountered anything like humans before." Admiral Kren studied a display showing the retreat of the Hive forces. "Your weapons seem more effective than ours as well. Targeted disruption of their central control nodes," Nancy explained, "combined with nanite infiltration of their crystalline structure. Both approaches were developed based on samples our ships collected." "Your ships," Kren repeated. "How many do you have operating in Council space?" Lisa hesitated. "That's classified information. But I'm authorized to tell you that Earth has maintained a presence beyond the Sol system for the entire decade since the ban was imposed." One of the other Council officials, a tall being with feathered skin, made a sound of outrage. "This is precisely why humans were contained. You simply ignored our decree." "With respect," Susan said firmly, "we've operated in Council space for 10 years without causing a single incident. In fact, we've provided assistance to numerous ships and stations in distress. Ask researcher Vrillix about his experience with the Silent Hope 5 years ago." The Council members exchanged surprised looks. "Vrillix never reported contact with humans," Admiral Kren said. "Because we saved his team when their station was failing," Lisa explained. "He chose not to report us out of gratitude. There are others who have made the same choice after similar encounters." Before the conversation could continue, alarms sounded throughout the ship. A tactical officer rushed into the conference room. "Admiral, the Hive has regrouped. They're attacking in greater numbers with new formations." Admiral Kren stood quickly. "How long until they reach us?" 20 minutes, sir. "And they appear to have adapted to some of the weapons the human ships used." Lisa turned to Nancy. "How quickly can we develop new countermeasures?" With access to the Council's more advanced fabrication systems, 15 minutes, maybe less. Admiral Kren seemed to make a decision. You have access to whatever you need. Officer Trell will escort you to our engineering section. As Nancy left with the Council officer, Kren turned to Lisa. I am temporarily deputizing your ships as Council auxiliary forces. We will address the implications of your presence later if we survive this encounter. Lisa nodded. Agreed. I suggest we combine our command structures for this battle. Your ships have more firepower, but our tactics might make that firepower more effective. An unusual arrangement, Kren said, but these are unusual circumstances. Minutes later, Lisa stood beside Admiral Kren on the flagship's bridge. Human and Council tactical officers worked side by side, creating a hybrid battle plan that incorporated the strengths of both fleets. The Hive approaches from 3 vectors, reported a Council officer. They've adopted a new crystalline structure that appears more resistant to our energy weapons. Then we switch to kinetic weapons, Lisa suggested. Physical impacts that shatter their structure rather than trying to disrupt it energetically. Admiral Kren nodded. Reconfigure all vessels to use mass drivers and projectile weapons. And, implement the randomized attack pattern that humans have provided. As the combined fleet prepared for battle, Susan approached Lisa. The Council ships are having trouble with the randomized patterns. Their crews are trained for precision and coordination, not controlled chaos. Lisa thought for a moment. We need to give them a framework they can understand, but one that still appears random to the Hive. She turned to Admiral Kren. With your permission, I'd like to assign 1 human tactical officer to each of your major ships. They can help translate our approach into terms your crews will understand. Kren hesitated only briefly before agreeing. Make it happen. As the Hive forces approached, the combined human and Council fleet moved to meet them. This time, instead of the rigid formations the Council typically employed, the ships moved in what appeared to be chaotic patterns. But there was method in the madness, a human kind of logic that confused the Hive's analytical intelligence. The battle was fierce but shorter than the previous encounter. The new tactics, combined with Nancy's quickly developed countermeasures, kept the Hive off balance. Unable to predict the defenders' movements or adapt quickly enough to their weapons, the crystalline ships began to break apart under the assault. They're retreating again, announced a tactical officer. A cheer went up from both human and Council crew members. Lisa caught Admiral Kren's eye and saw something she hadn't expected. Respect. It seems, the Admiral said quietly, that the Council may have been hasty in its assessment of humanity. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. We've been trying to tell you that for 10 years. 1 year after the first battle between the combined human Council forces and the Vex Hive, representatives from all 7 Council species gathered in an unexpected location. The United Nations Assembly Hall on Earth. The large room had been modified to accommodate the different physiologies of the alien visitors. Environmental bubbles for species that couldn't breathe. Earth's atmosphere stood next to standard seats for those with more humanoid forms. President Sam Wilson stood at the podium, looking out at the historic gathering. On behalf of humanity, I welcome the representatives of the Galactic Council to Earth. A year ago, such a meeting would have been unthinkable. Today, it represents a new beginning for all our peoples. Supreme Counselor Zendrax rose from his seat and approached the podium. The tall Zorlian moved with the careful dignity of his ancient species. President Wilson, honored representatives of Earth, we come before you today to formally acknowledge what your actions have already proven. The assessment that led to humanity's banishment was flawed. A murmur ran through the Earth delegates. For 10 years, they had lived under the shadow of the Council's decree, developing their secret fleet and operating in the darkness of space. Now, finally, that shadow was lifting. The very traits we feared, your adaptability, your unpredictability, your capacity for both creation and destruction, proved to be the salvation of countless worlds, Zendrax continued. When faced with an enemy that could adapt to any conventional approach, humanity's unconventional thinking became our greatest asset. In the year since the first battle, human ships had operated openly alongside Council forces, pushing the Vex Hive back from populated systems. The fight wasn't over, but the tide had turned. The crystalline entities had been contained in a remote sector where a combined research team, human and Council scientists working together, sought a permanent solution to the threat. By unanimous vote of all Council species, Zendrax announced, the decree restricting humanity to the Sol system is hereby rescinded. Earth is invited to take its rightful place as the 8th member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The assembly hall erupted in applause. Jack Nelson, now a distinguished older man but still standing tall in his admiral's uniform, caught Lisa Blackwood's eye from across the room. They shared a smile that spoke volumes. The dream they had pursued for a decade had finally come true. After the ceremony, a smaller meeting took place in what had once been the secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, now transformed into Earth's Galactic Affairs headquarters. Around the table sat the key figures who had shaped humanity's response to the banned President Wilson: Admiral Nelson, Captain Blackwood, Dr. Howard, Dr. Klein, and several others who had commanded the stealth ships over the years. Joining them were Admiral Kren, Zendrax, and lead researcher Vrilix, who had risen to prominence in Council scientific circles partly due to his early positive assessment of humans. The Hive has been pushed back to Sector 87C, Admiral Kren reported. The new weapons Dr. Klein and the Council science team developed have proven very effective. We believe they will be fully contained within the next 6 months. And after that? President Wilson asked. A joint Human Council research station will monitor the sector to ensure they don't develop a way to break the containment, Vrilix explained. The station will be staffed by scientists from all our species, working together. Jack Nelson smiled. Slightly. Quite a change from 10 years ago, when you were ready to destroy any human ship that ventured beyond Pluto. Zendrax inclined his head. The Council does not often admit error, Admiral Nelson. But in this case the evidence was overwhelming. Humanity proved its worth not through argument, but through action. You saved lives when you could have remained hidden, Admiral Kren added. You risked exposure to help others, even those who had wronged you. And when faced with a threat to the entire galaxy, you chose to help rather than watch from safety. We did what anyone would do, Lisa said simply. Vrilix made a sound that might have been laughter. That is precisely the point, Captain Blackwood. Most species would not have done what humans did. They would have remained safely behind their borders, perhaps even seeing the Hive as just punishment for those who had banished them. The question now, President Wilson said, is where we go from here. Zendrax spread his long fingers in a gesture that humans had come to recognize as indicating possibilities. That is for all of us to determine together. The Council has existed for 10,000 years by adapting and evolving. The addition of humanity will undoubtedly bring changes, but change can be beneficial. There's already talk, Admiral Kren sighed, of a new combined defense initiative. A joint military force drawing on the strengths of all our species. Many Council military leaders were impressed by how effectively our ships worked together once we adopted some of your more creative tactics and science cooperation, Vrilix added eagerly. Human researchers approach problems differently than Council scientists. Together we may solve challenges that have stumped us for centuries. Jack Nelson looked thoughtful. And our ships? The stealth fleet we built? They remain Earth sovereign vessels, Zendrax assured him. But we would welcome their participation in joint operations, particularly as we continue to push back the Hive. I believe we can arrange that, President Wilson said with a smile. As the meeting continued, plans were made for cultural exchanges, trade agreements, and educational programs. After decades of looking to the stars and wondering if they were alone, humans would now have the chance to learn from civilizations thousands of years more advanced than their own. And in return, they would bring their unique perspective to a galactic society that had perhaps grown too set in its ways. Later that evening, Lisa Blackwood stood on the observation deck of the Council diplomatic vessel orbiting Earth, the Blue-Green. Planet spun below, beautiful and precious. "Quite a view," said a voice behind her. She turned to see Frank Howard, the physicist whose breakthrough had made it all possible. "It certainly is," she agreed. "Hard to believe how far we've come," Frank joined her at the viewport. "When I developed that first stealth drive, I never imagined it would lead to this. I just wanted to prove we could slip past their barrier. And now there is no barrier," Lisa said softly. "That's humanity for you," Frank replied with a smile. "Tell us we can't do something and we'll move heaven and earth to prove you wrong." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Earth turn slowly beneath them. In orbit around the planet, Council ships now docked openly with Earth vessels. Scientists, diplomats, and cultural attaches moved between them, beginning the long process of integration. On the main Council ship, Zendrax stood with Admiral Kren, observing the same scene. "Do you think we've made the right decision?" Kren asked quietly. Zendrax considered the question. "Humans are still unpredictable, still capable of both great destruction and great creation. That hasn't changed. But," Kren prompted, "but perhaps the galaxy needed a bit of unpredictability. The Hive nearly defeated us because we had become too structured, too predictable ourselves. Sometimes the best response to a changing universe is to change with it." Below them, night fell across the Americas, city lights twinkling like earthbound. Stars, a new chapter was beginning, not just for humanity, but for all the species of the Galactic Council. The ban had been meant as a punishment, a way to contain a species deemed too dangerous to join galactic society. Instead, it had become the catalyst for humanity's greatest achievement, proving through actions rather than words that they deserved their place among the stars and across the galaxy. On worlds both council and human, people looked up at the night sky with a new sense of possibility. The stars were no longer distant points of light, but destinations, homes, new frontiers to explore together. The banishment was over. The future was just beginning.